Hi everybody. Okay, so welcome to this tutorial, this drawing exercise tutorial. Okay, this one is really all about our ability to observe and respond. And as you can see, the subject is going to be a fairly familiar one, obviously. We're going to be working from our own hand. This is a drawing that I did in preparation for this. It took me about an hour, I would say, something like that, on and off. I had a few breaks and came back to it. But this is basically what we're going to be doing. Okay, now I did this fairly late last night, so it was in strong artificial light. So these very sort of strong shadow marks aren't going to be evident today because I'm doing it in natural light. Okay, so it just depends on what light setting that you're going to be working in. So don't worry about it too much. This is, again, it's really just an exercise of being able to observe and to make some judgments. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get a sheet of A3 drawing paper. I'm going to secure it down onto the surface, my work surface. I'm going to secure all four corners of it. Once I get going, I don't really want it to move about too much. Okay, so I'm going to place my non-dominant hand, my left hand, on the left-hand side of my paper there. And I'm going to draw around it. I've just got a 2B pencil here. So I'm just going to draw around my hand. It's quite tricky actually, because I want to sort of get a fairly true outline. So I need to keep my pencil as close to the edges of my fingers as I'm moving this around. Okay, right, so there's the outline of my hand. Okay, so I want to now mark out my paper just to give myself a couple of guidelines really to go around. So I'm just going to mark at the top of my middle finger there. That's the highest point, if you like. Actually, I'm going to place my hand back because I want to also make a mark somewhere at the base of my hand. Okay, so let's say it's there and there. I'm going to get my straight edge rule, and I'm just going to place it at the point of that cross there, and just by eye I just want to make sure that the edge of the rule is parallel to the top of the paper, and I'm going to rule a line along there, and likewise at the bottom as well, just up to that, the base of the hand there. So level that up a bit. Okay, so I now know that the size of my hand is between these two lines here, these two marks here. Okay, so that gives me a little bit of a helping hand, pardon the pun. Okay, so all I'm going to do is place my hand into my hand shape, and I'm going to just sketch out. I'm just going to try and judge by eye the kind of overall shape and the distance between each finger and the height of each finger next door to it on this side of the page. Okay, and as I say, I've just got an ordinary 2B pencil to do it. Okay, so the way I'm going to start with this is really just to very freely start to make some sketchy sketchy lines, gestural lines. If you remember last week's drawing exercise was all about gestural mark making. So I'm just going to kind of try and get a bit of a feel for it. So I'm also trying to be aware of the space between the top of my finger and where the drawn line is above there. So that's kind of there to kind of help a little bit. I'm just going to get some very sketchy lines drawn in. And this time I'm going to be nice to everybody and allow erasers to be used. Because this one, because it's, you know, it is really all about making judgments. It's inevitable that, you know, you're going to misjudge. I mean, it's quite a tricky one. So no, you know, don't think that anybody gets this sort of thing right first time. It's a near impossibility to do, really. So just bear that in mind if you feel like you're struggling with this. I'd like you just to also just persevere with it. The temptation, I think, when you start any drawing is, if you think it's going wrong, the temptation is to scrap it and put it straight in the bin. Please try and not do that if you can. I'm just putting these sort of scribbly marks to demarcate where the joints in my fingers are, and that kind of helps judge heights and distances. And also, you know, the folds of skin will also help my eye make a judgment about heights and thicknesses as well is important. I mean, I know that this, I'm just looking at it now and I know it's going to be not going to be accurate. That's okay. Just get a sense of where the wrist and the arm is as well. Right, let's see how I've done. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to transfer my hand. I'm going to try and keep it as rigid as I can so I don't move my fingers, and I'm going to bring it over to my drawn hand shape, and I'm going to just place it down over. Okay, so how have I done? Okay, so I've kind of misjudged the thumb quite a bit. As you can see, I've made it far too tall. The height of that thumb is quite a bit shorter. The fingers I haven't done too bad on. I think they're just a little bit off in terms of, you know, the distance between. But that gives me a good idea of, so I'm just going to make a few little adjustment marks so that when I transfer my hand back onto my outline, I've got some marks I can come back and adjust my drawing by. Okay, so at this point I'm going to get my rubber I'm just going to skim over the top just to knock back some of these gestural marks, because what can happen is you can quite quickly start to build up quite a confusing tangle of marks very quickly. But I don't want to rub all the marks away. I want to kind of leave a sort of visual feedback map, if you like. Okay, so I'm going to come back in. So as I say, this isn't a speed exercise by any means. It's going to take quite a bit of time. As I say, last night it was probably about an hour all in all, with breaks. Which is also why you would draw right around your hand, because if you're going to have a break, it allows you to come back and place your hand in exactly the same position as it was, which is quite handy. So I'm going to this time introduce a bit of, trying to introduce some sort of stronger contour lines, more sort of descriptive lines. And I know this finger needed to come over a little bit. I have got my ring as well to help me judge the height and distance. For instance, the edge of my ring to where my knuckle is. So from this point, I think what I'm going to do is just crack on with this. And so the video will probably speed up a little bit, so you can watch what I'm doing. I'll come back a bit later. Okay, so at this point, I've managed to kind of get a fairly accurate drawing down, just of that outline, and I've put in a little bit more detail in terms of where my fingernails are. Fingers are a little bit, mind you, I've got quite wonky fingers anyway, so but there seems to be an overall sort of discrepancy of what I'm seeing, because my hand for me seems broader than it does on the drawing, but when I put it back in, it does seem to fit fairly okay. I think this finger's probably not in the right place. Okay, but I just need to kind of shake my hand a little bit, get the feeling back into my fingers. Okay, so now I've got this far. What I need to do is add a little bit of shape and volume to this. So I'm going to start to make some more gestural marks, and also to add in a little bit of shading to start to bring a sense of the three-dimensional form into it. Okay, again, it's going to take me a little bit of time, so do bear with me, and I will sort of do this as accurately as I can, but I'll probably speed the video up. Okay, so I'm just going to put my hand back into position and off I go again. It's quite important at this point to mention the play of light here. So I've got a natural light source coming in from the window. It's kind of early evening light. So there's a little bit of shadow being cast on the left side of each finger, so it's going to be darker. And as you can see, once you start to put in this shading detail, the whole thing starts to make a little bit more sense, I think. Visually, it starts to come together. And when you're just relying on flat shapes and lines. But as you can see, my mark making is still quite loose and gestural. I'm not worrying too much about every line and hair, because it's really not necessary for an exercise such as this. I do feel that what I'm going to do is broaden out that part of my hands there, so there's a little bit more tension there. I'm going to deepen. All I'm doing is increasing the pressure on the pencil when I need to go make a sort of deeper, more dense area of tone. So I'm not attempting to change to a different grade of pencil at all. I'm just relying on one pencil and just my ability really to manipulate it and make it do what I want it to do. I would say for all beginners to drawing, you know, obviously there's lots of things out there on the market, all manner of different types of pencil and grades of softness of graphite, and they're all lovely, and they all, you know, obviously can be very, very useful. But I would say really everybody just needs a bog standard 2B pencil, really, because it does the job. You know, it's not too soft and it's not too hard. It's a real kind of good middle ground pencil, if you like. So I'm just representing the shadow cast by this finger onto that finger. So everything is slightly darker on the left hand side of each digit. And again, you know, around the knuckles, I'm not going to worry about every fold in the skin. I just want a few sort of gestural marks to represent the knuckle. And also these loose gestural directional marks really allow me to build up information about the bone structure and, you know, what's going on beneath the skin of my hand. It's quite sort of fleshy in this area, so by using these directional marks I can describe curvature of each finger in its three-dimensional form. And I know my wrist as well, you know, the underside of my hand. It's just falling away into shadow a little bit there. There's quite a bit of shadow being cast on this side of my arm, so I want to bring my shading down, because actually my arm is angled upwards, which is having an effect on this side of my hand. That's where all the tension is. So I want to kind of exaggerate the tone on this side, just to kind of try and show where my sort of fingers are having to kind of flex. And again, I want some nice sort of loose directional marks to explain the shape of my wrist. Right, okay, I'm going to give my hand another shake because it's starting to cramp up a bit. At this stage, what you might want to do, I've got a paper blending stump here. If you haven't got one of those, you can use just a Q-tip or a bit of paper towel or an old rag or anything really. You want to avoid using the tips of your fingers to blend graphite, only because, you know, the grease from your fingers can sort of start to muck things up on the page quite a bit. So I'm going to use this nice soft paper blending stump. I'm just going to go over lightly to kind of unify some of these marks. I'm going to zoom in so you can observe what I'm doing a bit better. Hopefully, anyway. So all I'm doing is just softening without completely killing the integrity of the line and the marks there, because we don't want to lose that descriptive quality. And we want these marks to read as play of light rather than, you know, hair, basically, because, you know, it's all about how your mind's eye reads something. You can see I'm just kind of trying to do some softening. I'm not pressing down hard on this at all. I'm just really doing it very, very lightly. Okay. Let's see how that looks. I'm fairly pleased with that in the time. Okay, so I'm going to put my hand back into position. It's had a bit of a rest. I'm just going to reevaluate the play of light from my hand onto my drawing, so I can see there isn't a strong light source by any means, but you can see that the change in the light on the edge of my wrist here, a little bit here on the sort of top of my thumb, here on my thumbnail, and on the bones where you can just about see the bone of my hand, and also down on the right side of each finger. Okay, so I just really want to take my rubber and just go in and try and lift out some of this tone to better describe that play of light. And again, it's another intuitive thing as well, because of course every time the light source is coming in from the right, and so my hand is sort of affecting what I'm seeing all the time, you know, because of the shadow coming over from my hand on this side. So, but I know that the light is almost sort of taking out any of the hard lines that I put in to describe the overall shape. But I don't really want to rely on those anymore. I'm just going to rely on the tone. And make sure that comes over there. Blow away those marks. So as you can see now, the play of light, it looks a lot more dynamic, and I'm just going to go in now with my little Q-tip here and just soften the edges so it softens that kind of stark break between the areas of tone. Now I'll zoom up a bit as well so you can see better what I'm doing. So you can see I'm just kind of softening the edge of each of those areas of tone. Because, you know, it is quite soft light that I'm working in, so I'm just kind of knocking back slightly. I mean, really, this is, this is going to be your drawing, so, you can be as brief or as descriptive and detailed as you want it to be, but really the whole point of this is it's an exercise in just your ability to sit with a subject and to really kind of evaluate and make judgments on what you're seeing and how you kind of interpret it. And what better subject is your own hands, because well, the saying is, you know something like the back of your hand. Well, it's because you're so familiar with looking at your hands. Okay, so we're getting there with this. I'm just going to refine it down a little bit more. So I just want to get rid of some of these stronger marks where the light is hitting the edge of the fingers, because they don't need to be there. The tone describes it well enough, so I don't need to rely on hard lines. Okay, so I'm going to put my hand back into place and just have another look. And at this point, wherever the line is going to be deeper, where the light can't quite get to it, so on each of the left hand part of each finger, I'm just going to go in and reinstate some of these contour lines to describe the folds in the skin. And the shaping on the fingers as well. It's just redefining it. I don't really, I'm not after it being super detailed or anything, especially for a demonstration drawing, because obviously it could, like with any drawing, you can literally spend hours doing something. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I mean, obviously, if you're really into it and you're enjoying it and it, and you want to make it really detailed and as close to life as possible, then go for it, but I just want to get enough information down here so you get the idea of what I'm trying to achieve. Also, the weight of line, the depth, the more pressure you put on a line will make it go deeper and darker. just going to refine some of these tones as well around on the back of the hand. Particularly on these sort of tension points, because that's quite telling as to to explain the position of the hand and the fact that it's sort of flat down on a surface. I don't think I've got it 100% right. There's a lot of work I could do on this. But again, it's an exercise in observing, and I think it's fair enough to, as long as you can sort of make a judgment for yourself where you can improve something and where you can, just alter it slightly. Sometimes it's difficult when you're doing something and you need to step away from it and come back to it. So, don't feel like you have to do this all in one go. You don't. I mean, if you did want to take a break, just make sure that when you come back to it, it's roughly the same time of day, so you don't, you're working in similar light conditions. Because as I say, it is quite a challenging one, this. But I know that you all like a challenge. Okay. So I'm going to come to a bit of a finish on this, I think. Okay, so there you have it. I think I'm going to bring this to a finish now, just soften off some of those edges. As I say, please do give this one a go. It is quite challenging, but I think if you can just spend a bit of time with it and ease yourself into it, don't be too hard on yourself. It's important to realise that, it is tricky, that it's hard to do, but so worthwhile if you could sort of master some of the gestural mark making techniques. And as you can see, I've relied only on 2 marks. Everything else has been done by eye and judgment. Okay, and it's not going to be 100%, you know, it's thereabouts. It's thereabouts. So yeah, just give that a go and see how you get on. As ever, if you've got any questions about anything, don't hesitate to shout, let me know, and obviously do post up your outcomes on the Facebook page, because it's always really helpful to see those. All right, stay safe and well, everybody, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.